Hi, Acadiana. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Happy Thursday to you, and welcome to Let's Talk Tropics. Another fairly quiet day on the Atlantic side, although we did have a landfalling hurricane in Mexico on the Pacific side. At one time was a Category 4, made landfall as a Category 3. So we'll talk about Hurricane Erick and what that effect is going to be on Mexico, and if there's going to be an effect on us over the next several days. It is another very hot and humid afternoon here in Lafayette. Temperature 90 degrees. We've got partly cloudy skies right now. Heat index, though, is all the way up to 98 with that dew point at 73. Humidity 59%, light breeze out of the south-southeast, and the pressure at 30.12. We do have a lot of sunshine here in Lafayette, but there are some spotty showers and a few thunderstorms that are out there as things start to get going with the daytime heating. A little bit of a darker sky there over toward Ambassador Caffrey and then up toward Alexandria. Maybe just some clouds there, but there are some showers that are on the radar. In fact, let's take a quick look here and show you what's going on. Most of the action is pretty spotty, but you got a little rain over there around Ville Platte down towards Chautauqua and then parts of Jeff Davis Parish north of the I-10, but south of 190. Couple of showers there along the Texas state line and a few spotty showers that are continuing. Let's pull up the Hammond radar here real quick. You can see a few showers going on as you head over toward New Orleans, but we are going to be seeing the chances for rain holding at 50%. I do think we're going to see a few more scattered showers and thunderstorms firing up as we go through the day. But I also wanted to kind of give you an idea of some of the bigger thunderstorms that are moving across parts of Mississippi. Those are sliding southward. One of the things I'm a little more concerned with this particular round of thunderstorms here is I think it's going to go ahead and continue to move off toward the Gulf Coast, but occasionally when you get this kind of a setup, you get a bit of an outflow boundary that comes in this way and kind of drifts in from the northeast. So we'll watch the skies a little later this afternoon to see if that actually comes into fruition. Here's a look at the big satellite, and one of the things that's probably going to grab your eye is all of that moisture that's down there over the Bay of Campeche, southern part of the Gulf Coast there in Mexico, and there is a lot of rain, and there's been a bit of an upper-level trough that's moving westward over Cuba. And with a leftover tropical wave, there's a lot of moisture there over Central America. But the bulk of the convection you're seeing there is actually some outflow from what was Category 4 Hurricane Erick that made landfall as a Cat 3 and is continuing to weaken as it moves inland. And the winds and the seas are a bit more rough there over the western part of the Gulf. But locally, our waters are looking okay with south winds about 10, maybe up to 15 knots, and seas today will be running about 1 to 2 feet. So a closer look at the Gulf satellite, again showing a lot of thunderstorm activity here over the Bay of Campeche. But we've also got this bit of a trough that's kind of moving westward here across Cuba, but that's in the upper levels. And at the surface, we've got Hurricane Erick, which is still a hurricane. We're not going to get another update until about 1 o'clock, but it is over land, so most likely Erick will be a tropical storm by then. But you can see the tremendous amount of moisture that continues to pull in off the Pacific. And as the center of circulation here continues to kind of move inland and dissipate, you got that pretty good flow that's throwing a lot of moisture across that thin area of Mexico between the Gulf of Tehuantepec, which is right here, and the Bay of Campeche, which is right here. So you got a flare up of some thunderstorms right in there. But at this point, we're not seeing any tropical characteristics of anything moving toward the Bay of Campeche, and nor do we expect anything. But we are going to watch it over the next couple of days. But there's the latest on Hurricane Erick as moved inland. Winds are down to 85 miles per hour, moving northwest at 12, and torrential rains are going to be moving over the southern portions of Mexico. And as we look at the rest of the Central American satellite, once again, you can see this upper trough that's right about in here, and that's going to be continuing to kind of drift off toward the west and might increase the chances for rain over the eastern part of the Gulf as we head into the early part of next week. And at the the same time, we've got more of a ridge that's going to be building locally. So I'm hoping that the chances for rain are going to start to drop off as we head into the weekend and next week. But unfortunately, that means the temperatures are going to be climbing. We have a tropical wave that's moving across the Caribbean. Not really showing anything but some showers and thunderstorms there, so no big deal. Upper trough is right in here, so that's going to continue to kind of in tandem move off toward the west. So at this point, we're not expecting any issues out over the Caribbean Sea. And then as you look farther out into the tropical Atlantic, we've got a number of tropical waves that are working their way across the ocean. Looks like we got one here, one about there, and the other one over there. So you got three of them that are moving across. This one here along the coast of South America is producing some pretty good rains over Trinidad and Tobago and the southern part of the Windward Islands. There's some decent convection here, a little bit of convection there, and a little bit of convection coming off of the Atlantic coast. None of the models are really picking up on any of this over the next several days, so we're not too concerned about what's going on in the far out parts of the Atlantic Ocean. So according to the National Hurricane Center, we are not expecting any new tropical cyclone activity here over the Atlantic Basin for the next 7 days. We'll watch that just in case they start to look at something there over the western part of the Gulf or the Bay of Campeche. But even the next couple of weeks in the global tropics hazard outlook has really dropped anything from the western Caribbean or the southern Gulf, not only for the rest of next week, but the following week after that. But the GFS is still showing a little something trying to get going toward the early part of July. And we're going to play with those models coming up in just a couple of minutes. But first, the water temperatures, again, getting up over 30 degrees Celsius, which is over 86 on the Fahrenheit scale over much of the Gulf Coast. We are seeing those very warm temperatures extend down into the western part of the Caribbean. But those are the surface temperatures, and that 80-degree water goes pretty deep across much of the central and western Caribbean. And the loop curtain starting to show up a little bit more there over the southeastern Gulf. Remember, that's just some extra fuel. It's like premium fuel for tropical systems to tap into, but they also have to have the right atmospheric conditions. But that doesn't seem to be the case right now, as we've got not only a lot of Saharan dust across much of the Atlantic Basin, even though it's limited there over the western part of the Caribbean and the Gulf, the wind shear is pretty much off the charts. You've got low wind shear where Erick made landfall over southern Mexico, but north of that, you're seeing a lot of wind shear, and that covers much of the Caribbean and pushes out into the Atlantic too. So that would inhibit any tropical storm development, at least in those areas. So a real quick look at some of our computer models, and what we do is we look at the global models and go out 10 days just to give us a hint that if there's anything out there. We start looking at some of the medium and short range models when you have an actual tropical system developing, but this kind of gives us a window into the next week to 10 days. And I will say that the GFS is a lot more quiet here for the next 10 days compared to what we were looking at when we finished the week last week. So that's some good news there, but we are going to look a little bit farther out since the GFS goes out 16 days. So hold on for that, because you may have seen a few things on social media for maybe some action coming for the first week in July, and maybe even toward the 4th of July weekend. Euro model looks very similar to what we're seeing with the GFS. Again, for the next 10 days, really not a whole lot of action out there. The Canadian runs about the same too. It kind of fires something up over the Pacific side, but really keeps much of the Atlantic side very, very quiet here all the way pretty much through the end of the month. This has taken us through June the 29th. And the Icon model only goes out 7 days. It keeps a lot of moisture there over the western part of the Gulf Coast along the Mexican coast. But other than that, really not seeing any organized areas showing up on any of the models. So maybe a little moisture coming in there over toward the Leeward and Windward Islands down toward the end of the loop. But for the most part, our 4 global models that we're using here are generally keeping things quiet. So I want to look a little bit farther out, and I'm going to use the GFS as the example because that's the one that takes it a little bit farther out. And one of the things, I'm just going to show you a couple of things real quick. This is from the model run from earlier this morning, actually during the overnight period. So the 6Z run during the overnight period this morning was showing a landfalling tropical system along the upper Texas coast sometime on near the 4th of July. This would be late July 3rd, going to the early part of July 4th. Now, remember, we can look at the different model runs. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back several because the GFS was showing some interesting things over the past couple of days. So what we're going to do is this is this morning's model. You saw the newer model really isn't showing a whole lot. And let me just double check real quick because the GFS model wasn't quite finished. And it looks like maybe it's trying to develop. Okay, so it looks pretty similar to what we're looking at here. Although, this particular computer model is trying to put something closer to the Texas Gulf Coast. And notice how it kind of slides from the Yucatan and then kind of pushes northward. So let's just take you back to June 30th, and then we'll just progress this a little bit farther. And again, this is the last model that we had information on earlier this morning. The latest model that goes out that far is, and I don't have the image here, but it's developing something more right here and then kind of pushing it over into that direction. Again, that's the next that first week in July. So let's get back into this and let's see if we, okay, there's the most recent model run there, which shows on late July 3rd a tropical system there off the Mexican coast. This is the model previous, and again, we're still looking at about early morning or mid-morning on July the 3rd. So the one prior this morning had something in the Western Gulf. This one, which is one before, which ran yesterday afternoon, has low pressure over South Texas. And then the previous models before that don't have a lot, but then that blip kind of comes back as you look back at June 17th. So back on Tuesday, it was showing some tropical weather perhaps in those areas. So again, as a meteorologist, even though I'm looking at this computer model that's out more than 2 weeks and it's really not very trustworthy, the more the model run to model run to model run starts to see some agreement, you start to look at that. And then after that, you start to compare that to some of the other computer models. So right now, nothing happening, but I'm just kind of trying to show you the evolution of how models will put out tropical systems and how us as meteorologists kind of interpret that, whether that's something that we should be worried about or something that we can really just kind of throw away. And at this point, because the model is so far out, you're talking about the first couple of days of July, you can really still kind of throw it out, but we'll keep an eye on it over the next week or so. And if you start to get more and more agreement between the model runs, and then if you get some agreement, let's say between the GFS and the Euro or the Euro and the Canadian, then you start to focus a little bit more on some of the other forecasts to see if you got anything actually trying to happen. So that's how we do the forecasts way ahead of time. Again, usually something that's 2 weeks out, we're not too concerned about, but it does give you that early warning system. And if we didn't have these kind of computer models, we probably wouldn't have any information until 4 or 5 days out like we used to maybe 20 or 30 years ago. So we've got a lot more prep time when it comes to tropical systems, especially with some of these long-range global models. But that's all we've got for you out there today. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and turn on those notifications. That way you know when I'm live for Let's Talk Tropics here at noon each and every weekday. You can also hear my forecasts on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. Also, please follow my social media pages for any radar updates throughout the day on Facebook and X. And of course, thanks to everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I hope you all have a great Thursday. Looking forward to tomorrow as we finally get to kick off a weekend. I'll see you then. Have a great day.